it's Emma and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to make a screw bound or post bound album like this. The beauty of these albums is that you can make them any size you like. Obviously you're not restricted by the size of the folder, and also you can add to it almost indefinitely, but we'll talk about that in a second. I talked about why I decided to do this in my previous video, so I put a link to that. So if you're interested in understanding why I decided to do this, then please go ahead and watch that one. So the other thing about this is it's actually really incredibly easy and incredibly inexpensive. So you only need a few things. Now, some of these things you probably won't already have. Some of them you may have, but we'll just run through what they are now. So these little things are screws, and you can buy them in various sizes. So I have here all different sizes, and they start pretty small. So this is the oh god, I can't tell. This is the screw. You can see it's pretty short, that one. It is only about ½ an inch. And then you get this screw which screws into the little hole here. So when you're starting your album, you can use a small screw, and then they get bigger. So there's obviously that one is bigger, and then you can get, I don't know, open this upside down. You can get really long ones, and then these ones are even longer still. So you can see that they can go pretty wide as a traditional album. This one is 3 inches, so that's quite wide. And you can even get extenders. So there's, instead of having the little screw go in, you can get ones of these where you screw it in, and then there's a hole at the end to screw the actual screw in, if that makes sense. So you could, I guess, make it like massive. You probably wouldn't want to do that because that would be pretty unmanageable. I buy these on Amazon. If you look for post bound or screw bound fastenings, I think that these probably cost me around £12. So that's about $10. And you get a lot. I mean, you can make a lot of albums with these. So no specialist skill required. The other thing that I do is I use this linen. I probably won't be able to pick it up too well on the camera, but this is very thick card. I would say this is like 300 to 350 GSM card, and it has a very fine linen texture to it. I like to use this card because I just like the card, but I also use this card because I want a base to put my photos on. So you can see that all of these, I print them out and cut them out, apart from the cards. They're all from Ali Edwards. And then I stick my embellishments and cards to this backing sheet. It's not strictly necessary. You could just print out this whole page as a digital page, and then do the rest of the method that I'm about to show you like that. I tend to find, or I feel personally, that photo paper is a little bit flimsy, and I wanted something that was quite substantial. So I used the backing to create a home for my pictures. And also I like to sew my vellum onto the card. If I was doing it on photo paper, I guess I could still do that, but I'm not entirely sure if it would hold up as well. So that's why I tend to stick it on here. So I think I bought like 50 sheets of this, and it cost me, I think, around £15. So again, not very expensive. And then I use this product for my hinge. So you'll see on here there is a hinge, a clear hinge. The reason for having the hinge is that if you don't have a hinge, it becomes very difficult for your pages to turn. If I grab the first one that I ever made, you can see that, although you can't see this, but these pages are scored, that even when you turn them, you have to hold them down, otherwise they just shut. Now, if that doesn't bother you, don't make the hinge, just make creases in your pages, and you can just, this works perfectly well as a book. So you don't need to put the hinge in. I put the hinge in because I know this is going to be a bigger book and I want it to be able to kind of lie flat. If I get my week in the life one out, I'll show you what I mean. So this is pretty chunky. When I open it, I've done this one slightly differently because I created this folder around it, which I will do for this eventually when it's finished. But these pages, even though it's chunky, they lie flat. I don't even need to hold it and they will lie flat. So that's why I put the hinge in. So I'll just pop that back. So to keep this pretty cost effective, I use these pocket pages. So these are for, not that one, that's the wrong one. These are crystal clear and they are pretty heavy plastic. It says 75 micron, so that is easily as heavyweight as a page protector you'd buy from Ali Edwards or Becky Higgins. But these, I think this pack of 150 cost me something like £10. So very, very cheap, and I don't mind cutting them up. And they're also really readily available. These are not difficult to get hold of in any part of the world, I don't imagine. So once you've got all your supplies together, there's the assembly part of it, which again is also really easy, but I just want to give you some tips on how to do this. So I have my foundation card, which I will put my stories on. And then I have a strip in the same card as this, which will be my kind of holder here. Now the reason for having the holders, or I don't know what I would call these, is partly because your album will get chunky and you want to have some kind of bulk here so that you don't end up with a skinny bit here and this is massive. So you may end up having to put more of these strips in. The other reason is you don't really want the edge, these strips, to show, because that would look a bit untidy. So this disguises them, and then you don't have to be too careful with the placement of this, and I'll show you that in a second. So I cut these out on my silhouette, on my portrait. I have a portrait, but there's really no need to do that at all. All you need to do is just cut out your bases, and then for your strips, just cut it out the same length. This strip is 3/4 of an inch wide, but you can make it any width you like. The only thing I would suggest you bear in mind is if you're using a hole punch, then obviously you need to make sure that you're going to have enough room to make your hole, so or you can reach. I've just made mine 3/4 of an inch, and then I made the measurement of my hole directly in the middle of that. So the way that I work this out is I basically cut out a draft, I folded it in half, and then I measured where this was, and I made a hole there, and that was my center. And then I measured from here to here, which I believe was like 70 mils, but this one is like 3 3/4. And I made 1 3 3/4 that way and 1 3 3/4 this way. So I would suggest, if you're not using a cutting machine, that you just make a template like this, maybe in some make sure it's quite sturdy card, so that when you're making your holes with your hole punch, you always make them in the same place so that everything lines up together here. That's why I decided to cut them out on my silhouette, just purely so that I could, the holes will always be in the same place because it's always cutting them in the same place. But you really do not need to have a portrait to do this. So once you've got your bases, we're going to cut out these strips. So it's kind of hard to see the strips because of course they're transparent. But these strips are, they're 1 inch and 1/4 or 3 centimeters. And I think the reason that they're that wide is because I literally just got my ruler and I just made them that wide. So I got my sheet here. I got my ruler. I've got my trusty blade. I love these blades. And then I lined it up top and bottom on my grid. I literally just found a line on here, which is that one there, and cut off the edge. And then I think I just went to the next line. So I just did literally two sort of grid lines across. It doesn't really matter as long as they're all this pretty much all the same, because you just want this bit to be pretty uniform. So once you've cut out all your strips, and if you're using these to do it, I would recommend keeping them attached at the bottom until you've cut all your strips, and then just cutting the bottom one off at the very, it just stops it moving around a bit. So it's easier to cut. Once you've done that, this is how I attach my strip. So imagine that I've already put on here all of my journaling. I don't stick these together until all of my photos or embellishments are already on it, because I don't want to go to the hassle of sticking them together and then putting it on and I make a mistake. So all I did was I put this on a line so I knew it was straight. And then I got some of my Nemesis red line tape. So I will do this to show you how I do it. And I just put it down the edge like this. Then I do the same with the strip. So make sure you're doing it on the right side. And I just put another strip down here. Like this. Now, when you're doing this, actually, just make sure that you run the tape. If you're using red line tape, you do it like this. Otherwise, you could pull your card and it folds up on itself. So just do that bit slowly. It doesn't seem to do it on the big sheets, but on the little strips I've noticed it does. So once I've done that, I will line this up. Now I use, again, not necessary for this project, just trying to find them. I've got a magnetic, this is a magnetic cutting board. And I just put these little magnets on. Incredibly strong magnets. These are actually magnets for holding music pages over on a music stand. So I put those on and it stops this moving around, which is very convenient. And then I line this one up with this one. Let's try and line this up a bit better. So they're in the same place. And this just stops it wiggling around. And then I take off the tape. Actually, you should probably take the tape off before you line them up, because you're going to move them, aren't you, when you line them up? Just talk amongst yourselves while I try and get this blinking tape off. There we go. That's one. Line that up with that edge, line it up with that edge so we know that that is straight. Put my magnets back on and then do the same on this side. This is the most complicated bit, getting this tape off. There we go, done. Then you get your strip, and then you simply lie it across. Now I'm wondering whether or not I've made my strip too wide. Hang on a minute. I think it's half, I did it like this much, like ½ an inch. There we go. That looks better. I'm just gonna measure to make sure that that is right. Yeah, it's basically, yeah. So I left that much of a gap between them, and because they're lined up on either side, that line is on there, that line's on there, I know it's going to be fine. And then you just take your strip and you just lie it across both and push it down. Like that. And then if you have any excess on the end, you could cut it off with your knife, although I just use a pair of scissors. And there you have it. So that is side one. Then you would do what you would do when you have finished putting all of your images on here. You would just glue this back on here. Either you could use red line tape. I just use one of these rolling tape runners. That's fine. I've never had any of them come unstuck. And then you just stick this on the other side like that. And because I put these, you either use a template or your cutting machine, the holes are always going to be in the right place. And so it's as simple as that. Pretty easy. If you do decide to make one of these, please let me know. I'd really be interested to see how it turned out. Share your Instagram pages with me. Show me what you're up to. I'd love to be more connected to the community, which I love very much. And I'll see you all again soon. Bye.